Masamune was an overfed potato who got brutally rejected by his crush for being ugly. However, after transforming himself into a Giga Chad capable of rising to hottest baddies, she falls for him badly, but he only wants to clap her for revenge. In the past, Masamune looked like a giant bowling ball, so he constantly got bullied despite being from a rich family. However, a girl saved him from his bullies, which made him develop a crush on her. He then built up the courage to confess to her, but she rejected him and named him Pig's Foot, triggering his thorny path to obtain the perfect body in the gym. Years after being rejected, Masamune was now a ripped gym bro who couldn't wait to use his carefully rehearsed rizzing technique on all the ladies at his new school. As he headed there, all the girls he passed by forgot to breathe, and he too decided to aura farm by walking extra slowly. Later, while he was socializing in class, a smoking hot girl named Aki suddenly showed up looking for a wimp called Tanabe. She then grabbed Masamune's tie like he was her dog and asked him if he was Tanabe, but Tanabe quickly identified himself, so she left Masamune to focus on him. Apparently, the faster wrote her a love letter, but she found his audacity so insulting that she nicknamed him Pudding Boy and tore the letter to shreds in his face. After she left, the girls explained how Aki was notorious for nicknaming boys who dared confess to her, so everyone called her the Cruel Queen. Masamune found her familiar, so he ran to get a second look and realized that Aki was the same girl who ruthlessly rejected him for looking like he ate his twin, and he thanked the heavens for the opportunity to have his revenge. He immediately got to work and learned from his classmate Kojiro that Aki had a bunch of dumb girls following her, but for some reason, she always ate her lunch alone in secret. While investigating, he stumbled upon Yoshino, who was always with Aki, and the airhead led him to a storage room where she was delivering snacks to Aki. As he curiously looked inside, he saw a spider hanging by the door and screamed so loudly that he lost 500 aura points in front of the girls. Even though he exposed himself, Aki didn't care and wanted him to leave, but he noticed some stacks of food trays she'd already consumed. To make things worse, her tummy growled so loudly that she almost died of embarrassment. She then started yapping about how she had to eat extra because she had low blood sugar, but bro had had enough and just wanted to be far away from the glutton that was eating everything in sight. But as he turned to leave, she asked for his name and swore to destroy him if he leaked her secret. Following that encounter, Aki decided to turn him into her personal butler to keep him close, but while he was suffering, everyone in school assumed they were building a romantic relationship. One day after school, the Glutton Queen told Yoshino to get her more snacks, and while she was waiting, she was approached by the Pudding Boy. When she tried to ridicule him, he grabbed her hair and asked why she seemed to be okay hanging out with Masamune and not him. In a fit of rage, the guy was about to cut her hair with a scissor when Masamune showed up and grabbed it with his bare hand just in time. As soon as he saw Masamune's bloody hand, the boy forgot he was fat and started running faster than Usain Bolt. Meanwhile, as Masamune walked away like a Chad, he reminded himself that his goal was to make her fall in love with him before having his revenge by dumping her in the most dramatic way possible. However, the next day in school, Masamune found a letter in his locker that was titled Pig's Foot, and this made him shake in his boots because that was the nickname Aki gave him when she rejected him. A few hours later, Masamune was in class trying to figure out who sent him the letter. He considered the possibility that it was Aki, but later ditched the idea because there was no way the princess would cook such a crude letter. Masamune knew that if she wanted to expose him, she'd do it in the most diabolical way possible, so he wondered who else knew about his past. When Kojiro asked what he was thinking about, he started wondering if it was him. But Ta-Ye suddenly showed up and startled him. Just then, he heard someone yell the word Pig's Foot, and the shock made him fall from his chair. However, it turned out to be some idiots in class talking about their food, and he felt relieved because he didn't want to relive his awful past ever again. He remembered how his old bullies used to call him Pig's Foot during their trolling, and when some girls came by to simp for him, he feared that they'd bully him in the same way after finding out his secret. Just then, the teacher asked him to read a line from their passage, but he was so overwhelmed by the tragic delusion he just had that a tear rolled down his cheek. Everyone was surprised by this, so he explained that he was simply moved by the Romeo and Juliet ripoff they were studying. This was enough to fool his classmates into thinking he was a softie, but as he read the passage, he knew things wouldn't be safe for him until he found the mystery person. After class, he was seated on a bench in the hallway, and he realized that if Aki found out who he was, it would spell the end of his revenge plans. This would mean that all his efforts, including getting his name changed after his grandpa adopted him, and training like Saitama to get fit, would all be a waste. Just then, some students rushed to the school shop and started fighting over food, so he realized that he was watching the infamous lunchtime race that he'd heard so much about. Yoshino came by and tried to get into the crowd but got shoved away and fell in a way that gave Masamune a clear view of her cake. When he went to check on her, she babbled some nonsense about heaven, thinking she'd been unalived, and this made Masamune realize she was doofus. She then handed him a list of some food items she aimed to buy, and when he asked if she wanted him to buy it for her, she confirmed that she did. After swimming through the hot crowd, Masamune managed to make it to the front, and he told the storekeeper all the snacks he wished to buy. When he turned with the food, Yoshino saw how attractive the food looked and started yapping some nonsense about magic before he yelled at her to get a grip. As she walked away with the food, Masamune asked if they were for Aki, and her awkward reaction proved that they were. When he asked to follow her, she tried to sneak away, but he pinned her to the wall and did his best Diddy impression while grabbing her chin. He then noticed she was tearing up out of fear, so he apologized and promised that he wouldn't do anything that would get her in trouble with Aki. In addition, he promised that he'd explain everything to her when he gets there, so she agreed to take him. When they arrived at the storage room, Aki scolded Yoshino for coming late, but proceeded to stuff her face with the school snacks while Masamune watched from the door. After Yoshino left, Masamune walked inside, and his GigaChad energy was so powerful that she searched for Yoshino to save her. When she asked why he was there, he said he was only stopping by to see how she was doing. However, when he noticed the amount of food she'd already scarfed down, he felt disgusted. When she asked about his injured hand, he told her it still stung a little, and she replied that she never had any intention of involving him. Her shy reaction was comforting to him because he wanted her to feel even more guilty about it. However, the exchange gave him clarity that she wasn't the mystery person X, so he wondered who it was. Just then, Yoshino came back and fell in a similar manner as before. Masamune couldn't stop himself from staring at her plots, so Aki poked the virgin's eyes. When Yoshino handed him a drink, Masamune was shocked, so Aki explained that Yoshino was always respectful towards everyone, which was why she awkwardly bowed all the time. She added she only liked when Yoshino was respectful towards her, but Masamune suddenly put his juice box on her cheek and said he wanted her to rely on him more than Yoshino. After he left the storage room, Aki freaked out, and this made Bro happy because it meant his plan was going smoothly. He thought about the pickup lines he learned from Chinatsu's brain-rot mangas, and they made him so confident that he decided to move to the next stage of his plan. Later that day, he walked through the park, planning how to get Aki's email, when suddenly he fell into a rope trap set up by a mysterious person. As he hung, the girl called him Pig's Foot and took off her hood to reveal that she was Yoshino. He asked how she knew his old nickname, but suddenly remembered that she was at Aki's mansion during the past affair. After cutting him down, she explained that her family had served Aki's family, the Atagakas, for centuries, and after hearing this, he felt that his plan was done for. When he revealed his intention to give Aki a taste of her medicine, Yoshino threw a curveball by offering to help him. Sometime later, Masamune was helping Ta-Ye carry some documents to class, and he decided to ask for her number, but when he noticed that his contacts were 0, he ran away in shame. In class, he heard Ta-Ye talking with another student about how the beautification committee needed a member, so he volunteered to fill that role as part of his plan. However, when he was cleaning the school with the other members, Aki ignored him completely. Some hours later, Masamune was cleaning the class windows when Ta-Ye suddenly showed up and asked to go see the latest Demon Slayer movie in theaters with him. He rejected her for the sake of his plan, but after she left, he started celebrating how popular he was with girls until Aki suddenly arrived. When she angrily asked him about his relationship with Ta-Ye, he said he didn't feel anything for her, and then asked Aki to go out with him. She immediately thanked him, but when he asked for her email info, she said her phone was under repairs at the moment, so he asked her to meet him there the following week. When the day came, Masamune followed some clues Aki left him, but after all the turmoil, she ended up declining his date offer. After she left, Yoshino showed up and asked him to let her help him on his love chase with Aki. She suddenly grabbed his phone and put her contact info in it. The next day in school, Ta-Ye announced to the class that it was just decided at a meeting that the entire class would have to take supplementary lessons for a month if even one student fails their proficiency test. Hearing this, all the students started panicking, except Masamune, who smiled like a nonchalant king. When Ta-Ye saw him, her entire face glowed red, and she shyly asked him what they should do about the situation. Masamune said they needed to work hard, but she claimed it would be easy for him since he was a boy genius. However, Masamune said the one who had it easy was Kojuro, who was snacking on some cake. When he asked Kojuro why he wasn't worried about the test, Bro gleefully said he only needed to work hard to get double digits since he got only single digits in their previous test. This made them realize that Kojuro was a dunce, so Masamune decided to become his permanent study partner. During their first study session, Masamune asked Kojuro to list the things he knew, but Bro said he didn't know jack, so Masamune wondered how he got into the school in the first place. In the table behind him, Aki asked the same thing about Yoshino, whom she was tutoring, and when they spotted each other, Masamune asked if they were studying for the test. Aki explained that she was only helping Yoshino study to stop everyone from taking supplementary classes, and Bro was surprised that Yoshino wasn't smart despite her looks. When Kojuro told the girls that Masamune was tutoring him, Aki started teasing him, and when she brought up how he fell for her trick the other day, Yoshino gave him a signal. Seeing this, Samune challenged Aki to a contest to see which tutoring duo would score the highest in the proficiency test, and the stipulation was that she'd have to go on a date with him if she loses. When she asked what she'd get in return, Masamune said she'd get to give him any nickname of his choice, and he'd walk around with it pasted on his back until he graduates. However, she claimed that it wasn't enough and proposed that he'd also buy her lunch whenever she wanted, so he agreed. After the girls left, Kojuro expressed his concern to Masamune, but he told him not to worry because he knew that it was a 3-on-1 battle since Yoshino was on his side. Later that day, Aki watched as Yoshino studied, and when Yoshino asked why she wasn't studying, Aki said she was confident that she'd put the numbskull in his place. However, Yoshino informed her that Masamune was the first person in their school's history to get a perfect score in their entrance exam, and this surprised Aki because she thought he had muscles for brains. Seeing that she was worried, Yoshino gave her a goofy manga to help her study, and when she read it, the romance scenes made her brain overheat. After dropping the book, she claimed that there's no way she'd lose, and she promised to continue helping Yoshino until the test was over. That evening, Masamune was about to call Yoshino, but he got cold feet because if he did, she'd be the first girl he ever called. Luckily, Yoshino called him, but he still struggled because he knew she'd be the first girl he'd ever pick a call from. When he finally picked the call, she called out how much time he wasted, so he lied that he needed to finish a gooning session. He then asked her if she'd help him with the wager, but she said she couldn't because he made that decision on his own without consulting her first. The next day, Kojuro the dummy struck again as he scored a 9 in the test, so he promised Masamune that he'd share his punishment with him when they failed. When the girls came by, Aki threw some insanely hard questions at Masamune, but he answered every single one correctly. As she moved along, Masamune realized that he and Aki were on the same level, and that he had to give his all because their wager was now up to him and Aki's abilities. He spent the next several days studying hard with Kojuro, and Aki was shocked when she saw him doing so in a nearby cafe. The next day in class, Masamune realized that they only had math left, and he felt confident about it because he put extra effort in teaching Kojuro that subject. When he went to the vending machine, he met Yoshino there, and she apologized for turning him down. However, he said it was alright since he started the fight himself, and he assured her that he and Kojuro wouldn't lose because they were in top form that day. Hearing this, she handed him a drink, and wished him good luck before running off. When the test began, Masamune was pleased because the test questions were exactly what he studied with Kojuro, but his stomach suddenly started hurting. He then remembered Yoshino's words while handing him the drink, and this made him suspect that she poisoned him with laxatives to help Aki. After the test, Kojuro tried to approach him, but he angrily walked away and grabbed a girl who looked like Aki, but just turned out to be one of his fangirls. When he asked where Aki was, she revealed that Aki was out with fever, and this made him realize that he'd already won before Yoshino even handed him the drink. However, he still wondered why she poisoned him, but then he got a text from Chinatsu, who informed him that the omelette Kinui made that day was sour. Sometime later, Masamune was on a train dressed up as Justin Bieber, and he remembered Yoshino telling him to meet up with Aki at the station that day for a date. When he arrived, he saw Aki wearing a Temu Madoka costume, and when he asked why she was dressed that way, she spouted some nonsense about how costumes were necessary for first dates. Soon they arrived at a cinema hall, and Masamune sat beside Aki, but she complained that he was too close, so he moved to a farther seat. Together, they watched the cis version of The Walking Dead, which was so intense that it made Aki's soul leave her body. After the movie, they went to a diner where Aki started eating like a horse again. When Masamune asked about her eating habit, she said it was connected to something in her past. Just then, a girl came by to ask her about her outfit, and she started to explain some weird stuff to the girl until Masamune dragged her away to save them from embarrassment. Outside, he told her it wasn't normal to wear cosplays on dates, so she went into a dressing room to change and got so embarrassed that she screamed. Masamune rushed to check on her, thinking she was in danger, but he saw her wearing just her plot armor, so she rewarded him with a punch in the face. Later that evening, he woke up on a bench with his head on her lap, and he saw her napping as well. On his way back home, Yoshino told him that she was helping him because she believed Aki needed to re-examine herself, so he called her master. Some days later, Masamune was studying a romance manga to add more Riz moves to his arsenal when Chinatsu came by to borrow the manga. When she asked why he was studying so late, he smiled because he knew executing revenge is no different than studying. The next day at school, Aki warned Yoshino not to feed her garbage information about maid costumes again, so she apologized. As Masamune watched them, he smiled because he knew the next stage in his plan would guarantee him victory. When it was time for supplementary class, Masamune sat beside Aki, and when she asked if he had to sit there, he said he did. During the lesson, Masamune kept staring at Aki and made her uncomfortable, so she asked him to face forward. However, Bro went into Riz mode as he replied that he only had eyes for her, but this only creeped her out. After school, it was raining so badly that the students were using their bags as covers. Aki stood outside, regretting the fact that she didn't bring an umbrella, but the Sigma Lord struck again, as he handed her his umbrella while saying some more Rizful words to her. As he ran in the rain, he celebrated the fact that he'd successfully used his pickup lines on her, and he was confident that he finally stole her heart. However, that evening, Yoshino told him that his words only creeped out Aki. Bro was in disbelief, so she made it clear that Aki said it 24 times that day, and admitted that she agreed with her. Masamune started preaching about how divine the romance manga was, but she said it wasn't the problem, and suggested that he backs off from Aki for a while. As he stared at her in shock, she explained that he couldn't keep charging in, and needed to switch things up a bit. She then suggested being cold to her the next time they met, and walked away. When she arrived at Aki's mansion, Aki scolded her for coming late, and she lied that it was because of a stray cat before handing her the food she bought. Meanwhile, Masamune read another volume of his manga, and saw that the heroine fell for the main character more when he was cold to her. However, he wondered if it would backfire in his case and make Aki hate him more for it. The next day in school, Masamune ran into Aki, and he was about to greet her politely until he remembered Yoshino's instruction. Taking his sensei's words to heart, he ignored her attempt at talking to him, and coldly walked past her. When he arrived at class, he was surprised that he actually managed to pull it off, but he still feared that he'd destroyed all the progress he'd made up to that point. During supplementary class, Aki tried to return his umbrella to him, but he ghosted her once again as he went to greet the other nerds. When Masamune ran into Aki the next day, he was confident that she'd be head over heels for him, but she immediately turned back and walked away, causing Yoshino to give him the stink eye. He translated Yoshino's signal to mean that he should keep his distance, so he did that for several more hours, but soon he got overwhelmed and whined in the bathroom that he was about to go back to being a background character. A while later, he was walking through the hallway when Aki approached him looking like an angry bird, and she bluntly told him that she had a few words for him. Bro was bamboozled because he thought she'd be acting calm and shy towards him like the manga, but what he got was a complete 180 of that. When he tried to walk away, she stopped him by throwing his umbrella on his head, and blocked his path like a rugby player until he managed to slip past her. However, she dragged him down using his tie, and aggressively questioned him about his recent behavior. As he tried to wrestle out of her grip, he wondered if he'd never get to live the life of a romance protagonist, but suddenly her voice went softer as she asked him why he was ignoring her. This left him completely shocked as he now realized that the cruel princess had a vulnerable side, and although her cute face had him blushing, he stopped himself from folding. After standing up, he told her that he'd been waiting for her to say that, and she said he was awful for doing it intentionally. When she asked why he was doing it, he tried to tell her he likes her, but she cut him off by asking what he liked about someone like her. After going through several options in his mind, he replied that he liked everything about her, and when she asked what he meant, he said she was the absolute best before running away. As he sprinted through the yard, he asked himself why he was suddenly running away after making a ton of progress, and he called Yoshino to help him out with the next step. When he met her at the park, he begged her to tell him something that would make Aki's heart explode, but she refused to tell him anything. The next day, Masamune decided to give Aki a love letter to cover up for his lack of communication skills, but she caught him before he could put it in her locker. He then handed her the letter, saying it was how he felt about her, but she threw it in the trash and told him that she hates him. As he tried to explain himself, she told him to shut up, and said she saw through his nonsense long ago. After she ran away, Yoshino showed up, and when Masamune complained to her about the situation, she asked him to leave it to her. He continued pestering her for guidance, but she said he was useless at the moment since he couldn't say what he liked about her, and promised to make her fall for him. After she left, Masamune decided that he wouldn't sit around and let someone else do all the work in his vengeance quest. The next day, Aki was on a swing thinking about how she caught Masamune secretly meeting up with Yoshino. This made her so jealous that she started stepping on his umbrella until Yoshino arrived. She told her to head back to class, but Yoshino then confessed that she'd been communicating in secret with Masamune. When she asked how she felt about it, Aki tried to put on a brave face, but when she held her face, Aki admitted that she didn't want to have her heart broken by a boy again. However, Yoshino said Masamune only had eyes for her, and when she asked if she felt the same way, Aki turned to answer but saw that she was long gone. While searching for her, Aki was lost in thought about her current romance situation, and she almost got hit by a car, but Masamune saved her. The romantic tension between them started rising, but before Aki could confess her feelings, the girl in the car interrupted them. She identified Masamune as someone she knew and hugged him, but bro had no idea who she was. As Masamune stood there in shock, he noticed that her plots were pressing on him, and his body started tingling. When she noticed this, she immediately scooted away and apologized. She then claimed that it was her prayers that allowed them to meet again, and held his hands while smiling. The softness of her hands made bro's mind start drifting into La La Land, but he maintained composure and started brainstorming about who she was. When she asked if he remembered her, he said she had the wrong person, but then her maid, Shido, showed up and told her they needed to move. She told Masamune that it was a pleasure meeting him, and that she wished to see him again soon before entering her car with Shido. After she left, bro started sweating because he knew his chances of clapping Aki just went down the drain, and when she asked who the girl was, he said he had no idea. She then told him to unalive himself before walking away. In the car, Shido told the girl, Neko, to remember the promise she made to her father, and she replied that she hasn't forgotten. She then smiled at her reflection while claiming that it would be an interesting game. Much later, Masamune was hosting an episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live, and he announced to the crowd that he wanted to bring the hammer down on hot-headed women. When Aki's image displayed on the screen, he claimed that he wasn't guilty and urged her to listen to him. However, it was all part of the Virgin's daydreams as he stood by the hallway, and he soon got squeezed by the hungry crowd that flooded the area. After managing to buy some food, he went to the gym storage, hoping to meet his piggy princess and appease her with food since he knew she'd never reject it. Before he could get in, an assassin hiding in the bushes started firing toy bullets at him, and after he ranted, Yoshino popped out to reveal that she was the wannabe John Wick. When he asked why she did that, she said she was following Aki's orders, which were to chase him if he came near her domain. Ro was depressed because of the fact that Aki was still mad at him, and Yoshino said it was because of something that happened the other day between them before asking what he did. After narrating it, he tried to explain that he had no idea who the girl was, but Yoshino started blasting at him again while calling him a greedy man for acting on his own. When he claimed that he was too incompetent to get the girl, she said it wasn't the point, and then ran away. Realizing that his master had ditched him, he started practicing pickup lines to cheer Aki up. After flopping hard in his own mind, he dropped the food outside the storage room, and as he walked away, the glutton princess grabbed them. The next day in class, Masamune was in class thinking about the cute girl, and he realized she was his type, but was still bothered by the fact that he didn't know who she was. As he thought about Aki's stubbornness, Kojiro and Ta-Yiv noticed that he was acting differently that day than other days. Just then, the teacher announced that there was a new transfer student that would be joining them in class, and Masamune's jaw dropped when he saw that it was the girl. She introduced herself as Neko, and as all the boys started drooling over her, she winked at Masamune before taking her seat. During the 5-minute break, Masamune wanted to seize the opportunity to ask Neko questions, but some girls beat him to the punch and asked her where she transferred from. She said it was an all-girls boarding school named Psycho, and one of the girls recognized it as a rich girls' school that was so elite that it appeared on television. Masamune tried to talk to her, but he couldn't get past the busybodies until the break was finally over. During the next break, he watched in anger as the girls still flocked around Neko, and a fellow jealous nerd asked Kojiro to go mix up with them. He tried to refuse, but the boy put a ribbon on his head while motivating him to pose as their rainbow friend until Masamune offered to go in his stead. This shocked Kojiro, but the other boys were so grateful, they promised to treat him to McDonald's and karaoke. When he walked over to her table, he tried to start a conversation, but the girls suddenly reacted in a weird way. Ta-Ye then revealed that Neko transferred to their school just for him, causing him to scream in shock. Seeing this, Neko said he had no way of knowing, and added that she came because she felt personally indebted to him. During Christmas 3 years ago, Neko stood by the street corner begging people to donate to her charity project. When she started freezing from the winter cold, Masamune covered her in his jacket and dropped some cash in the box. As he walked away, she chased him down, and when she caught up to him, he advised her to dress more warmly, claiming that the cold was about to make her fly away. In the present, Neko told everyone that it was those words that made Masamune an angel in her eyes, and they all started gushing over her perfect shoujo manga story. However, Masamune knew he wasn't actually the one because 3 years ago, he was still a fatty training to get in shape. He suddenly grabbed her and asked to talk to her, causing the rom-com addicts around to scream in admiration of them. As he ran outside with her, she tried to warn him that she couldn't keep up, but she suddenly fell to her knees from exhaustion. When Masamune saw some blood on her mouth, he started desperately searching for some help, but she said it was okay since she simply got dizzy. He helped her up, but then noticed a tomato sack on the floor, which made him realize that the blood was fake. To cover up her dumb trickery, she started explaining some random nonsense about tomato sauce, but Masamune changed the subject by asking why she lied since he didn't know her. She then confessed her feelings to him, but he told her he already had feelings for someone else. When she asked if they were dating, he said they weren't because it was still one-sided, so she asked him who it was. A while later, he showed Aki to her, but she claimed that she wouldn't be a problem and walked over to her. When she started pestering her, Masamune caused a diversion by opening the window, but the wind blew up her skirt to reveal that she was doing commando. She soon started talking to Masamune again, and this ticked Aki off so much that she walked away. When Masamune chased her, she tried to push him away but accidentally punched a teacher behind her, and this made him put both of them on pool cleaning duty as punishment. During the pool cleaning, Aki tried to tease him but fell into the river. After saving her, he told her he liked her once again, so she asked him to prove it by kissing her. Meanwhile, Yoshino was waiting for Aki in the yard when Neko suddenly showed up and pointed out how hot the day was. She sat beside her and asked if she knew where Masamune was. When Yoshino asked why she was asking her, she claimed she was the best person to ask, but Yoshino said she had no idea where he was. At the pool, when Aki asked Masamune to kiss her, he started imagining all the smooch scenes he'd seen on Brazzers, which made him lost for words. Seeing this, Aki asked if it was too much for him and claimed that he should be able to kiss her if he likes her. However, Masamune felt kissing was like jumping straight to the end of his death or love plan, since it was meant to be the grand finale. In his mind, during an exotic getaway on a beach between them, Aki would try to kiss him, but he'd reject her immediately and walk away, thereby completing his mission. He never imagined that she'd rush the kiss into the middle of his plan before she even fell for him. Seeing that he was having second thoughts, she tried to walk away, but he pulled her close to him and started freaking out because he was about to lock lips with something other than his pillow for the first time. To make things easier for himself, he imagined her as a piece of ham, and this allows him to lean in for the kiss. But Aki got so flustered that she sent him flying with an uppercut. When he asked why she did that, the hothead suddenly started acting shy, and this only ticked him off. Just then, Ta Ye showed up with some other students and asked what they were doing there, so Masamune explained that they were cleaning the pool as punishment. He also lied that they jumped in the water to see if they were devil fruit users or not, but she said it was stupid for him to do so with his clothes on. When he asked what she was doing there, she said she had swimming practice, and Bro realized she was in the swimming club, which explained her fit body. After she left, Aki went out of the pool and told him that she'd accept the fact that he loved her so much that he didn't know what to do with himself. However, she turned to him with a corny smile and said it raises the question of who cares, causing him to freak out in annoyance. Some hours later, he was seated in the yard thinking about how the annoying pea-brain turned him down for something that she proposed, and he couldn't believe he actually tried to kiss her. Just then, Neko showed up and said she'd been looking all over for him. He said he didn't have energy to talk at the moment, but she presumed that the work was too grueling for him and handed him some tea. When he drank it, he noticed that it was salty, but she smiled and advised him not to let his body cool down too much, even in the summer. She also informed him that the sodium in citric acid helped protect against dehydration, which was why she made the roasted green tea with pickled plum. Hearing this, Masamune felt she was making sense, and he preferred the tea to the sweet prime juice he was planning on getting. She also pointed out that he lacked some other necessities such as essential vitamins and magnesium, and recommended some beer yeast and propolis. While showing him the items, she revealed that the company used a patented method for extracting the components of propolis, making it more effective as a supplement. She then noticed that Bro didn't understand her jargon, so she apologized for frying his remaining brain cells. He asked her what she liked about him with the intention of turning his recent stumble into something profitable. Since this was the head-scratching question Aki asked him earlier that he couldn't answer, he planned to shoot down any basic answer she threw at him. He felt that she couldn't give any real answer because she didn't know anything about his character, so he felt that this was the best question to ask in order to politely turn her down. However, she claimed that she liked how he's so modest that he doesn't realize his own charms, and this literally made Bro's mind drift into heaven. As he struggled to respond, she told him to be more confident because he was a very lovely person, and walked away. After she left, Masamune decided to approach things differently, and when he stood up, he noticed that his shorts were dried. Meanwhile, Yoshino was secretly watching Neko, and she decided to do something about her quickly since she found her dangerous. She spent the next several hours following her around, and she eventually lost track of her in an alley, only for Shido to approach her from behind. When she asked what she wanted with Neko, Yoshino tried to feign ignorance, but Neko reappeared and told Shido that Yoshino was an old acquaintance of hers. She then pointed out that Yoshino was Aki's attendant while holding her hand, and when Yoshino apologized, she said it was okay because she knew the job was hard. When Yoshino asked her why she was interested in Masamune, she claimed that it was because he saved her in the past. However, Yoshino said it was a lie because he'd already told her everything, and their conversation was interrupted when a Kinue showed up. Meanwhile, Masamune was walking through the street, and he jotted down Neko's answer to his question because he planned to use it on Aki when they next meet. When he arrived home, he saw Yoshino and Neko cooking with Kinue, and when he asked what they were doing there, Neko told him she loved making fried shrimp. He then dragged Yoshino to his room and asked her what was going on. After she explained everything to him, he said they needed to go out of his house before they found anything sus. Neko suddenly entered his room and started fawning over it, so he dragged her back outside. During dinner, Shinatsu tried to expose Masamune for being a former fatty, but he stopped her by holding her face. As they ate, Shinatsu suggested lighting some fireworks, and Masamune tried to decline, but both girls supported the idea. A while later, the girls all put on yukatas, and they watched as Shinatsu went wild with the fireworks. Kinue then showed up with some watermelon, and asked them to have a contest. As the others are their watermelon, Neko stood beside Masamune laughing at them, and he realized that he felt something for her. After Neko left, Masamune offered to walk Yoshino home, but she revealed that she lived in Aki's mansion, so he retracted his offer because he didn't want to anger Aki. As they walked through the street, she advised him not to let Neko string him along. Meanwhile, Shido apologized for not being able to accompany Neko, but she said it was alright because she got some results, and she stared at Masamune's old picture with Aki. Some days later in school, everyone in class was celebrating the end of the term, and Kojiro asked Masamune what his summer vacation plans were. Before he could answer, Aki stormed in with a flyer and warned Masamune to stop using her desk as his personal trash can. He said he was surprised she figured out that it was him, but she pointed out a note on the flyer which had levels of goofiness that only he could display. Masamune was determined to take advantage of the 40-day vacation by pulling a power play using what he'd learned from Neko. However, Aki destroyed his romance dreams by revealing that she already had plans to spend her summer at her family's island villa. She then proceeded to invite Kojiro to the trip, causing Masamune to freak out, and he realized that she was doing it just to spite him. However, Kojiro proved to be a real bro by telling her that he'd only come if Masamune was invited as well, and Masamune added to that by claiming that they were a package deal. Neko suddenly joined in on the fun by grabbing Masamune from behind and claiming that she'd accompany him if he came there. Just then, Taye showed up and expressed her interest in going to the beach trip, so Masamune teased Aki with a smug face until she agreed to take all of them to the trip. Soon after, Masamune was on the ship with the others, and they made their way to an island called Tsunead Island. When Yoshino approached him, he asked where Aki was, and she revealed that the glutton princess was stuffing her face with food again. She also said she'd been watching Neko closely, but couldn't find any connection between her and Masamune to explain her attachment. So Masamune wondered if records were expunged somehow. As they watched her, Masamune told Yoshino not to worry because his only goal was to exact his revenge on Aki, and he assured her that Neko wouldn't stop him. However, Yoshino asked him to start taking things seriously, and promised that she'd tell Aki everything that happened if he doesn't do something about her soon. At the villa, a hottie with huge melons named Yuisaki was on the phone with her man, but he informed her that he'd ditched her for an OnlyFans model. After he ended the call, she yelled slurs at him until her maid informed her that the young lady had arrived. When Masamune and the others arrived at the villa, everyone started fawning over how boogie it looked, except for Masamune, who was haunted by Yoshino's words. Aki informed Yoshino that Yuisaki had arrived before them, and when Ta-Yi asked who Yuisaki was, she revealed that it was her father's secretary. Since Yoshino's father was busy, she came there to chaperone. As Yuisaki walked towards the door, she claimed that looking after the house was the job of the secretary, adding that Aki was the only one who could comfort her in her time of need. When the maids opened the door, she welcomed Aki, but Ta-Yi was charmed by her beauty. While scanning through her friends, she spotted Masamune and started asking Aki questions about him. As Aki spoke to her, Masamune remembered Yoshino's words and realized that if he didn't make Aki fall for him there, it was game over. Knowing that she was a cruel princess who hated men but loved to look good in front of women, he realized that it was the perfect time to make a risky move. He then boldly introduced himself as Aki's boyfriend, but before he could speak any further, Aki threw her briefcase on his face and yelled at him for acting like an idiot. After watching them argue, Yuisaki said it made sense because she'd have been worried if Aki was still in her hating boys phase. Aki was surprised by this, so she explained that it was embarrassing to watch her act like she hated boys, and she claimed that she was relieved that she found a charming guy. She kept pestering Aki until she grabbed Masamune's hand and asked to swing with him. Aki took Masamune to a room where she tried to scold him for his actions, but he teased her in response, and he was happy that his plan worked out. After another round of teasing, Aki told him that she'd only play his hand while they were on the island because it could lead to something complicated afterwards, so he agreed. Some hours later, everyone was gathered by the beach to have a swim, and Masamune was talking with his buddy Kojiro until Neko suddenly pressed her milk factories on his arm. She also asked him to apply some lotion on her, and Bro couldn't gather his thoughts because of the massive plots in front of him. As he struggled to get out of her grip, Aki showed up and separated them. She warned her not to use her cheap tricks on Masamune, and reminded her that they were dating on that trip. At first, she tried to argue, but Aki pointed out that her family would get a bad name if they heard that she was posing as Mia Khalifa, so she retreated. Afterwards, Aki dragged Masamune to a secluded part of the beach where she finally dropped the girlfriend act and sent him to get her some food. When he arrived at the diner, he asked Yuisaki what they could do on the island for fun, and she recommended a test of courage. Masamune knew that Aki couldn't handle scary things, so he felt it was the perfect opportunity to riz her up. When he asked her where they could do it, she said she knew a perfect spot. However, after he left, she swore that she'd send him to the afterlife for being with her hubby. Several years ago, Yuisaki was hired as the secretary of the Adagaki family, and she spotted Aki crying in the forest. When she asked her what was wrong, Aki said a boy had left her and claimed that she didn't need him anymore before running away. After that, she watched her brutally reject every man that came her way, and this made her fall in love with her dark aura. That evening, everyone gathered in front of a haunted house, and they all picked lots to determine their positions in the game. As the others went for their turn, Masamune smiled because he knew he rigged the order to set up a romantic scenario between himself and Aki that would make her crave him. Inside the building, Yuisaki wore a bootleg horror cosplay and plotted how she'd scare the living daylights out of Masamune to make Aki dump him for being a coward. However, Yoshino met her in her hiding spot in an even scarier cosplay and chased her all the way to the spot where Aki was standing. Immediately Aki saw her, she screamed in fear, but Yoshino kept chasing her until she ran out of the building. Outside the building, she saw Neko looking like a zombie, so she ran and ended up hitting her head on a pole. When she woke up, Masamune piggybacked her and confessed that he wasn't in a real relationship with Aki. On their way back, Yoshino told Masamune that his declaration in front of Neko helped their plan and promised not to tell Aki his secret. One evening, Masamune finished doing 100 push-ups and was admiring his well-built body until his phone started ringing. He thought it was Yoshino calling him, but when he approached the phone, he saw that it was Aki, so he froze in shock as he wondered why she was calling him. He eventually swallowed his pride and picked up the call, and she immediately yelled at him for not answering faster. Later that evening, he met Yoshino by the park and informed her that he'd forgotten one of his bags during the trip, and Aki wanted to give it to him personally the next day. He said it was surprising since Aki wouldn't want to meet with him normally and claimed that his plan on the island helped their situation. However, Yoshino asked him to think about things more carefully because they had no idea what would happen if he slips up. The next day, Masamune was in his room feeling down about the fact that Yoshino wasn't happier for him, and he decided to do some homework. However, he noticed that he couldn't find the old photo of himself and Aki, and he began to lose his mind. When he remembered that Neko entered his room, he realized that she was the one who took the photo. Later that day, he met Aki at a diner, and she handed him his bag, causing him to thank her. She then scolded him for leaving his property carelessly at her villa, so he apologized and admitted that he was surprised that she came to return it personally. However, she said it was her intention to mail it to him, but Yuisaki kept asking annoying questions which forced her to do it in person. With a pouty face, she warned him that he'd regret it if he kept acting too familiar with her, and he realized that she hadn't changed since 8 years ago. When he remembered that Neko was with his picture, he realized that she'd be able to figure out that Aki was the girl, and he suspected that she'd be able to recognize him as the fatty. Aki tried to start a conversation with him, but he was lost in thought as he wondered why Neko hadn't asked him questions since she stole the picture. However, Aki interrupted his brainstorming by loudly calling his name, and she said she'd leave since it was such a bother to talk to her. He tried to apologize, but she ignored him and walked away. He realized that this was exactly the situation that Yoshino warned him about, and decided that it would be bad to leave things the way they were at the moment. Just then, he got a call from Neko, and when he picked it up, she invited him to join her and Ta-Ye on a pool trip. However, Masamune asked to meet her right away, and she immediately agreed. When he arrived at her home, she invited him in while informing him that she didn't have much to offer. After gathering some courage, he finally stepped in, and Neko offered to make him some tea. He complimented her mansion and asked if she lived there with her butler, Shido, so she confirmed that she did. She then revealed that it was a secondary residence that her father and grandfather used for work, and asked what suddenly brought him there. Realizing that he didn't prepare a proper lie, he just told her that he was strolling in the area, and she smiled while saying it was faith. When he asked to use her bathroom, she directed him to the end of the hall, but he took a detour to search for the missing photo. The first thing he noticed when he entered her room were the concoctions she kept around, and he also saw some spicy romance manga around. As he read them, Neko suddenly creaked behind him and told him that the tea was ready, causing him to freeze in shock. When she asked if he could find the bathroom, he lied that he did. But then she started babbling about the trash manga he was reading. He then asked her if she took a photo from his room during her visit, and she immediately admitted it. When he asked what she was thinking, she pulled the picture out of her calcium cannons and said she couldn't help herself because the photo was just too cute. He asked if she was referring to Aki, but she pressed her melons on him and said he was the one she found cute. This stunned him because he never thought of his old form as cute, and he claimed that he was just a fatty, but she held his hand while telling him there was nothing wrong with that. When he asked if she meant it, she said she did, and claimed that she was jealous of Aki because he thought so highly of her. She then kissed him, and he enjoyed the softness of her lips for a few seconds before pulling away. To take things a step further, she gently pushed him to the bed in an attempt to do private yoga dances with him, and Masamune decided to let it happen since he was only out for revenge. However, when he remembered his last with Aki, he told Neko about how he used to get bullied during his early years and how he was used by the scumbags because of his family's money. He said he knew she was different from them, but he was also sure that she didn't really like him, and added that he didn't want to go any further with someone who wasn't serious. After taking the photo back, he walked away, and when she asked if he was choosing Aki, he replied that it was his revenge. Later that night, Neko was thinking about Masamune's words while holding her manga, and she wondered if what she was feeling was heartbreak as a teardrop rolled down her cheek. The next day, Masamune met the others at the train station, and Aki noticed that Masamune was looking pale. When Kojiro mentioned that Neko would be joining them, Masamune suddenly got a stomachache as he feared that an awkward scenario would arise when she comes. However, Ta-Ye informed everyone that Neko chose not to come due to a sudden illness, and Masamune realized that it was his fault. After having fun at the resort, everyone was about to make their way home when Shido showed up and grabbed Masamune by the shirt while asking him what he did to Neko. When he asked what she meant, he revealed that Neko was missing, and he felt it was just a normal outing until she disclosed that Neko left her medication. It was at that moment Masamune realized that Neko had health issues, and Shido revealed that he came by the mansion the previous day while asking what he did to her. Seeing that he has no choice, he told her he turned Neko down because he'd chosen to be with Aki. After saying this, he turned to look at Aki, hoping to get some sort of romantic acknowledgement, but she changed the subject by asking Shido if she could track Neko's phone. Shido said she couldn't do so because the runaway princess left all her devices behind, but Masamune was more concerned with the fact that he was completely ignored. To find Neko, Aki suggested splitting up, and when she asked everyone else if they'd help, they all agreed to do so. She then asked Shido to take them closer to the apartment, and as she walked to the car with her, she asked those who couldn't fit in the car to go with Masamune since he knew where it was. Hearing this, Kojiro and Ta-ye immediately rushed into the car, but Yoshino sidebarred Masamune to ask why he went to Neko's apartment. He reminded her that she was the one who told him to speed things up, but she said she never meant pulling stuff like that, and then joined the others in the car. Soon, the car squad arrived in the city, and they split up to search various locations, but none of them could find her. When Yoshino told Masamune about this, he went to their school, which was the last possible place Neko could be, and there he was suddenly joined by Aki. She said she thought Neko would be there, and Masamune explained that school was the only place she could go without knowing the area since she was usually driven around. Aki claimed that she'd searched everywhere that had a roof in the city, and as she wondered where else Neko could be, Masamune said he thought she did like Neko. This surprised her, so he explained that he was surprised that she was going that far for her. Aki revealed that she didn't like her even at that moment, but she felt bad for her since he rejected her. She added that being rejected by someone you love could really hurt, and Masamune struggled to find a proper interpretation for those words. With his fists clenching out of anger, he wondered why she did it to him when she felt that way, and why she gave every guy who tried to get close to her nicknames to humiliate them. He wondered if she thought boys didn't have feelings, including himself, who had his feelings shoved in the dirt. When she mentioned that she didn't want her to wallow in misery anymore, Masamune suddenly switched up and asked her if she remembered the name Pig's Foot. As she stared at him in shock, he considered telling her that he was the upgraded version of the chubby nerd she rejected, but then he got hit in the head by a paper plane. When he saw some other paper planes flying around, he realized she was on the roof, and remembered her telling him about how she read the latest chapter of her romance manga. He then ran as fast as he could to the roof, and Aki ran in pursuit of him. On his way there, he remembered her hyping up a sad scene in the manga, where the female protagonist was throwing love letters from the roof after getting rejected by her crush. When he arrived at the roof, he asked Neko what she was doing there, and revealed that he found her because he remembered the chapter of her manga she liked best. He then asked her to stop because she didn't have the strength to do what the female character, Momo, did, and she agreed before suddenly collapsing in his arms. When Aki showed up, he asked her to contact Shido immediately, so she rushed out to do so. As he wondered what Neko was thinking, he saw that the papers around her all had the words, "I love you" written on them. A while later, everyone was waiting outside the hospital where Neko was admitted, and Shido came by to inform them that Neko was okay, before telling Aki that Neko wished to speak with her. As Aki went to meet her, Masamune asked himself if what he did was right, and although his heart waved in that moment, he realized that he pushed her away simply because of his revenge plans. He knew that if he said yes back then, nothing would come from it, but he still felt bad about it. Just then, Aki showed up and informed him that he was next in line to see Neko. When he arrived at her hospital room, she asked to talk about the past with him. Several years ago, a junior from her former school invited her to her birthday party, and she agreed to come. However, when she asked to play tennis with her, her friends informed her that Neko was suffering from an illness, so she apologized immediately. Sometime later, Neko's grandfather pitched an overseas surgery for her, and she agreed to do it on the condition that she'd get to fall in love. In the present, she told Masamune that her only dream was to experience love, and when he asked why she chose him, she said she just randomly picked him from a collection of suitor photos. This made him freak out because he'd never heard anything about being a potential suitor, but she said it was all Kinue's doing. When he asked how it felt to try out love, she said they were both alike because of how they talked about love for the purpose of their goal. She then claimed that she didn't have any regrets because she was able to experience everything regarding love firsthand, and then asked him if he'd reached the same point as her. When he said he hadn't, she said she was pleased and thanked him for all the memories. In the waiting room, Ta-ye told Yoshino and Kojiro that she liked Masamune at one point, but she was now content with getting to hang out with them. When Masamune returned, Aki tried to approach him, but he quietly walked away. As everyone else left, Shido asked Neko if she was okay with letting Masamune go, and she replied that she was because Masamune told her that truth. She then remembered a day in the past when she took a picture with chubby Masamune during a party. As Masamune walked home that night, Neko's words lingered in his mind, but he still decided to go along with his plan. Meanwhile, Aki remembered Neko telling her to stop rejecting the love Masamune had for her, and she also recalled how she really loved chubby Masamune, but suddenly someone arrived in her garden. At the same time, Masamune informed Kinue and Chinatsu that he was leaving to retrain himself, and then he left the house. Back at the mansion, the mystery person revealed himself to Aki as chubby Masamune, and she completely believed him. When all the maids and butlers gathered in the garden, the Masamune imposter, Kinetsugu, told the head butler that he had a letter from his grandmother and handed it to him to take a look. The contents of the letter revealed that an elder member of the Adagaki family promised Kinetsugu a marriage with Aki. As he introduced himself, Yoshino secretly called Masamune. However, the musclehead couldn't see the call because he was too busy doing 500 push-ups. When he finished his set, he started aura farming in the sunlight. The next day at school, Aki was walking to school with Yoshino when she suddenly got approached by a nitwit who asked her out. She asked why men were so confident and proceeded to write out a cringe nickname for him on his shirt. As she walked away, the idiot found out that she used a permanent marker, so he swore that she'd regret it. When she arrived at the schoolyard, Sonoka and her friend Kikune glazed her for putting the scrub in his place, but she told her to stop because it was a regular thing. However, a four-eyed friend of hers named Murray pointed out that she wasn't that harsh with Masamune. She tried to deny the allegations, but Murray pulled out evidence of them spending summer vacation together. The two others freaked out, and Aki tried to defend herself by revealing that she initially intended to invite just Kojiro, but Murray checkmated her once again by reminding her that he's a boy. When Murray mentioned that the date was on a private beach, the other girls screamed in shock again, and Kinetsugu suddenly joined the conversation by asking to go there sometime with Aki. The others thought he was about to be rejected coldly, but Aki shyly agreed to go there with him sometime, and asked him to walk to school together. As she moved ahead, Sonoka and Kikumi started breaking down over the loss of the cruel princess, but Murray presumed that she was only rejecting guys because she was into chubby dudes. When Masamune arrived in class, he was surprised to see Neko seated there like nothing happened. Since he was confused about her surgery, she described the princess to him and revealed that she came back the previous day after staying a month at the hospital. When she asked how much closer he'd gotten with Aki, he disclosed that he'd been training to be a Super Saiyan this whole time, which made her very disappointed in him. She then warned him that someone could steal his spot, while showing him that Aki was walking with Kinetsugu. Immediately he noticed the tummy. He said there was no way that could be his love rival, and she agreed that it wasn't worth stressing about. After school, Kojiro asked Masamune to walk home with him, but he said he had plans to give Aki a gift he bought her from his home city. When he arrived at Aki's class, he saw her flirting with Kinetsugu, and his brain immediately had a meltdown. When he asked who Kinetsugu was, he introduced himself as a transfer student who just started schooling there. Masamune introduced himself in return, and Kinetsugu claimed that it was a coincidence because his nickname was Masamune. When he asked if Kinetsugu was her acquaintance, he revealed that they were engaged, and this made Masamune lose his mind. Immediately Yoshino showed up. He dragged her all the way to the storage room, where she asked him to stay calm. However, Masamune pestered her like a madman while demanding to know what Kinetsugu was talking about. She told him it was exactly as it sounded, and when he asked why she didn't tell him earlier, she said he wasn't answering his phone. When he asked if Kinetsugu was lying, Yoshino said she ran a signature analysis which proved that the letter was real, adding that he was a guest at the mansion at the moment. Masamune started freaking out about the fact that they were living together, but Yoshino pointed out that Aki was acting strange and presumed that it was love. The next morning, Masamune watched as Kinetsugu suddenly became prime Messi during soccer by scoring a goal despite his midget body type. He continued observing him later that day and found out that he was also smart with a good attitude. During lunch, Masamune observed that he was also very friendly with people, and when he asked Aki to sit with him to have lunch, Masamune got ticked off. Later that day, Masamune met Yoshino, and she revealed that Aki met Kinetsugu in the past, but Masamune kept ranting about how differently Aki was acting towards him. Yoshino then apologized to him, and he said she didn't need to apologize but noticed something off about her. Meanwhile, Murray met with Sonoka and Kikune, and ranted about how betrayed she felt about Aki's sudden romance with Kinetsugu. Just then, the devil they spoke about showed up, and asked to share a table with them, and Kikune tried to attack him with her kendo stick, but he dodged. When she attacked again, he explained that they had the wrong idea about him, so she halted her attack to hear him out. The next day in school, Masamune was busy reading sus magazines before Ta Yi called his attention to the planning they were doing for their class festival project. Ta Yi suggested Kojiro playing a princess in their play while Masamune played the prince, and everyone loved the idea. A while later, Masamune saw Aki alone for the first time in a while, so he seized the opportunity by pinning her to the wall. When she asked what he was doing, he said he wanted to talk to her, but she claimed that there was nothing to talk about. To escape him, she came in close to him and lied that his sausage was sticking out. After he released her, she went to class with Kinetsugu, and this made Masamune so jealous that he started ranting while the simp trio watched in secret. Back at the restaurant, Kinetsugu told the simp trio that he was engaged to Aki, but he had no intention of furthering their relationship beyond that. Because of this, they decided to side with him in order to protect Aki's V card from Masamune. In the present, the student council found out that both Class A and Class wanted to play Snow White, so the student council president, Sonoka, decided to have Class A have it. When Ta Yi heard about this, She tried to debate on behalf of her class, but the council members refused, and Aki deposed her as well, causing an argument between them. However, Kinetsugu showed up to convince Aki to back down, and this made Masamune's skin crawl. Masamune then suggested a competition to determine which class had the better play, and both class reps agreed, so the student council made it official. However, he pulled Kinetsugu to the corner and added a personal stipulation to their battle which grants the winner the right to dance with Aki at the post-festival party. Some days later, Ta-Ye was leading a tutorial for their Snow White play, and Kojiro started having cold feet, so she reminded him that they could lose to Class A. He claimed that he was doing his best, but she suddenly unlocked her inner Christopher Nolan, as she brutally criticized his acting until he tearfully ran away, claiming he wasn't a girl. In the hallway, he ran into Neko, who informed him that she was taking some costumes she made to the gymnasium in preparation for the big day tomorrow. When she asked where he was headed, he said he was running an errand, so she asked him to rejoin them soon. As she walked away, Kojiro watched her and admired how she always smiled, and treated him like a boy unlike the others. As Masamune searched for Kojiro in the yard, he was approached by Kinetsugu, who bragged about how Aki got happy whenever he gave her sweets during break. He then brought up the fact that Masamune used a wall slam move which he found in a magazine, and claimed that it was a lame Riz tactic. His words surprised Masamune as much as they annoyed him, but he still remained determined to win their competition. So far he danced with Aki. Meanwhile, the simp trio watched from above, and Kikuni said they needed to stop Masamune from winning at all costs, so Mori promised to take care of things. As they walked home, Kinetsugu brought up the fact that he met Masamune that day, but Aki said he shouldn't talk about him, so he apologized for endearing her. He explained that he was just trying to be considerate towards her, so she claimed that he'd always been that kind. When they reached some stalls around, she went to buy some snacks, and as he watched her, he knew he was in no position to receive the endearing words she just told him. His family has been poor for years, so he was sent to improve their situation. During a party a while back, Yuisaki mistook him for the one that Aki was close to when she was still in chibi mode, so he used that as an opportunity to kickstart his mission. He decided to make his mission a success, and he felt that Masamune wasn't a problem, but he was worried that Aki's real fatty crush would show up. That evening, Masamune was training on his treadmill when he suddenly started coughing. When Chinatsu told Kinui that he had a cold, she immediately rushed in and rolled him into a futon. On the day of the festival, the students were hyped about the Snow White battle between Class A and Class B, specifically because of the princess showdown between Kojiro and Aki. As the students cheered, Sonoka announced that the theme of their festival that year was explosion and urged them all to do their best. In the crowd, Masamune started coughing again, but when Ta-Yi asked how he was, he said he was fine. However, he knew he was battling with cold thanks to the dumb stunt he pulled the previous night, when he did a Batman impression on the roof with his body exposed to prove to his family that he wasn't cold. When Sonoka announced the start of the festival, everyone cheered, but Masamune tried to sneak out to find a resting spot. However, Neko grabbed his arm and asked him to walk around with her. They soon arrived at the nurse's office, and Masamune was confused, so she explained that her longtime sickness has given her the ability to tell when someone's sick. She then tucked him into a bed and advised him to sleep in order to recover faster before confessing that she didn't want him to make it in time so he wouldn't get to dance with Aki. Before he could react, she said she was kidding and claimed that she wouldn't do anything to hurt Class B. However, she offered herself up to be his dance partner if he ended up losing after trying hard, and he agreed. As she walked away from the hospital room, Kikuni watched her from a corner and smiled. Meanwhile, Aki was getting dressed in her drama costume, but she noticed that there was a lot of room in the chest area, so Mori helped her fill it up with pads. Just then, Kinetsugu showed up to class and saw all the girls changing, so they chased him out by throwing stuff at him. Outside, he saw someone in a weird costume who offered to show him somewhere, and he gleefully followed the stranger around. Meanwhile, Kojiro met up with Neko and tried to riz her up by role-playing Brad Pitt, but this only left her baffled. When they arrived at the hospital room, they couldn't find Masamune, so they rushed to ask Ta-Ye if Masamune had come around. She said she hadn't seen him, so Neko informed her that she couldn't find Masamune anywhere at school. In a storage room somewhere, Masamune was rolled up in a futon like a burrito, and he tried to scream for help, but his captor, Kikunya, warned him to be quiet. As the girls searched for Masamune, they started to get worried, but Kojiro showed up and informed them that he'd weirdly spotted class of people everywhere in school. In the storage room, Kikuni told Masamune that he'd stay there until Kinetsugu finished dancing with Aki, and this made him realize that she'd become one of his pawns. At the same time, Aki was informed that Kinetsugu suddenly disappeared, so the entire class started panicking, especially Aki. Apparently, the masked person was Yoshio, who led Kinetsugu to an empty room and locked him there. Back in the storage room, Kikuni told Masamune that she and the other two were Aki's personal guard, and narrated how Aki helped her humble a scumbag who cheated her in the past. However, Masamune used this story to gaslight her until she finally freed him of his bonds. She then got a call from Mori, who asked to speak with Masamune. When she gave the phone to Masamune, Mori told him to declare their match a draw and asked him to release their hostage. He realized that it was Yoshino's doing, so he refused her offer in order to give himself the advantage in their war since Classa was up first. When it was time for their performance, Aki motivated Mori to kickstart the show, so she texted Kikunin to leave Masamune there and help in finding Kinetsugu. Realizing that Masamune was playing her, Kikunin tried to attack him, but he baited her into jumping out the window and falling into the river. Afterwards, he met up with Ta Ye and Kojuro and informed them that Classa could retreat because Kinetsugu was missing. However, they informed him that their play had already started, so he rushed over to see what Aki was up to. When he arrived at the theater, he saw Aki on stage performing, and he noticed that their set was much more professional than he expected. As Aki started pulling off Chris Brown dance moves with her elves, Masamune stared in shock. When Neko asked him if their class could win, he realized that they couldn't because aside from Aki's Emma Stone level performance, their entire cast was next level. Just then, Marie showed up behind him and asked if he was enjoying the show, so he asked her if she'd found Kinetsugu yet. She said she hadn't, and when he asked if she had his replacement, she revealed that there weren't any other boys who could fit his costume. Hearing this, he asked why she decided to let the show go on, and she replied that it was because Aki decided that she'd go on even without a prince. Earlier, all the class of performers were gathered in a room, and Aki reminded them that Kinetsugu was still missing, before giving them a speech which motivated them to give their best performance yet. In the present, Marie said Aki didn't want to give up in the face of the enemy, but then admitted that they'd fail if they couldn't find Kinetsugu by the end. With tears in her eyes, she claimed that everything would go according to his plan, and ran away. He tried to chase after her, but suddenly fell to his knees, and he told Neko that he had to get Yoshino to let Kinetsugu out. As he searched for her, he noticed that she was on stage with the others, so he wondered how he'd get a hold of her from up there. After brainstorming for several minutes for a way to remedy his situation, he had an idea, and asked Neko to help him out with a special request. He then went backstage to meet Mori, and asked her to hear him out if she wanted her play to be finished. During the scene where Snow White was in a coffin being mourned by the dwarves, Aki felt it was more realistic that no one would come for her, because it was how things happened in the past. However, Masamune suddenly showed up as the prince, causing everyone to be shocked, especially his classmates. Back when he pitched the idea to Murray, she reminded him that they were enemies at war, but he said he didn't think their Oscar-level production deserved to get destroyed. In the present, Rose suddenly became as natural as Leonardo DiCaprio with his role, but all the aura points he garnered went down the drain when he suddenly tripped and fell flat on his face. As everyone stared in shock, the other actors rushed to check on him, but he improvised by pretending like his character was suffering from a chronic illness. Marie thought he wanted to sabotage their play, but Kikumi informed her that he was suffering from a legit fever and assured her that he'd finish the play. As he stumbled to the dying princess, Yoshino assisted him by pushing him forward, and he finally arrived in front of Aki. When it was time to kiss her, he started getting cold feet, but he eventually shocked everyone by giving her the kiss of a lifetime. She eventually teared up and punched him away out of embarrassment, causing the crowd to be confused. However, Yoshino salvaged the situation by starting a dance with the other dwarves to celebrate the princess reawakening. As the curtains rolled down, everyone gave them a round of applause, and Kinetsugu suddenly showed up in the crowd. The next day, Sonoka told everyone that Class's Snow White play ended up winning the contest because Class canceled their performance and came in last. She then announced that the Best Hero and Best Heroine awards were given to Masamune and Aki respectively. Ta Ye remarked that it wasn't fair because Classa was only able to finish thanks to Masamune's help, and he went to the nurse's office immediately afterwards. As she whined, Masamune apologized, and Kinetsugu brought up how he asked to be Class's prince, but got turned down by Ta Ye because he didn't fit the role. When Aki asked why they were there, Kikuni said they were thinking of having the after-party there, and Masamune added that they had to use that room because the others were full. Sonoka then suggested settling the class rivalry there with a music battle, and they all agreed to the challenge, with the stipulation being that the losers would settle the tab. When the battle began, Ta Ye volunteered to start, and she asked Masamune to pick a song for her. He picked one of Celine Dion's best singles, so Ta Ye gave an impressive performance. When it was Aki's turn, she performed Demon Slayer's opening with so much grace that it made everyone tear up. After a bit of partying, it finally got to Neko's turn, and she picked a breakup song because it represented her current situation. As she sang, Sonoka told Kikune that this contest was their chance to make Aki dump Masamune permanently by showing her how horrible he was at singing. As Yoshino performed, Kojuro asked Masamune to pick a song, but he ran to the bathroom to goon. Afterwards, he tried to escape, but Sonoka and Kikune blocked his path and gaslighted him until Aki came by to stop them. When everyone returned to the room, Neko intentionally put the opening of Aki's favorite anime, and both of them performed it as a duet, causing everyone to cheer for them. Soon, it was finally Masamune's turn, so he chose an Ed Sheeran song and performed so horribly that it knocked everyone out. Afterwards, he sat on a bench with Aki, and she asked him what he wanted to do as an apology, so he asked her to kiss him. She then asked him to close his eyes and leaned in for a kiss, only to shove a potato in his mouth. After she walked away, Masamune once again swore that he'd make her fall in love with him and then dump her. Who do you think will be the one to steal the Cruel Princess V card? Masamune? Kanetsugu? Or maybe Yoshino would go wild and play scissors with her? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. That's all for today's video. If you like anime recaps like this, check out this video here.